Hello everyone, I'm Ryan.
Hi, this is Jaylene.
Welcome to another video analysis for Vela Bay.
Okay, so for this Vela Bay is highly anticipated upcoming new launch in the Bayshore area.
And I think why is it so anticipated is because a lot of the units are actually facing the sea. For Singaporeans, when there's sea facing, it becomes very interesting to look at.
So without further ado, let's jump into the project information first. So for this Vela Bay will be done by Singhai. There's total 515 units and it's a 99 leasehold project.
So Jaylene, can I ask you, what does Singhai actually build in Singapore?
They built Park Clementi's, Gazania and a lot of the residential property in Singapore.
So why I ask this is because I think this time round is their first time coming into D15. I'm sure they are trying to make an impression over here.
Other than there's 515 units, one thing I want to highlight is there's only 50% of car park. So what does this mean?
50% car park, to me, it means that we are really very close to the MRT. That's why they only build limited lots.
Correct. So actually this one just next to the Bayshore MRT. So there's total 2 blocks with 31 story high. So there's 9 units per level. So you can see here the grey color is the actual site for Vela Bay. For this Bayshore estate, it's a new estate under the 2025 master plan. So you can see these 2 orange color one actually is BTO. So why I mentioned about new estate is they will be introduced 10,000 housing into this estate. Okay?
Wow, does it mean that today if I buy Vela Bay, next time if I want to sell, I will have a lot of HDB owners to buy from me?
No. So later we will cover this part. Because actually for HDB under this area will be plus. So later Ryan will go into details on this. So what I need to draw your attention is when we take this video, actually there's one piece of land on tender. So this one is walking distance to Bedok South MRT. So you can see it's integrated transport hub. Next time, we'll have the bus interchange MRT at this area.
I just want to add on this piece of land, right? They are able to cater 1,280 units. It may cause some stress to the developer, I do not know. But let's see what the developer will actually price. We will know about it later.
So last thing to touch on this slide is we are within 1 km to Temasek Primary School. So this will be the site plan for Vela Bay. So as you can see, this time I think the developer designed the facing for the unit quite mindful. Why I say so? Because 72% of the unit will have the sea view. So you can see this slide for the 1 all the way to the 3 all these facing can see direct sea view. Whereas for 6 and 7, for this direction, can see the landed view. So actually these 2 facing in today's market actually is quite popular.
Correct.
So if we were to zoom into the project itself, so you can see for the blue color one actually have the direct sea view. And here you can see it's combined one. It's the red color combined the blue color one, which means it's partially sea view. So why for these 2 sites have partially sea view, I guess is because beside the Vela Bay, there's one piece of empty land. Next time we'll have another residential coming out. So I guess they are prepping for that.
Correct. So take note that for those who really want sea view, right, you must buy a unit that is above 11. Because from what I understand, East Coast Park, right, if you want the sea view, you must clear the very tall trees. So this is something that you need to take note.
Of course, for the sea view unit, we'll have the west sun and some road noise.
For the longest time, those that buy along the East Coast stretch, those that's facing sea, confirm will get either the west sun or the highway noise. It's only which level you choose, maybe you can deter some of the noises.
So now let's jump into 3 main concerns that most people will have. So for the first one is there will be upcoming 10k worth of new housing in the Bayshore estate. So will the exit be a concern? So for the second will be surrounding private condo make Vela Bay looks expensive. So is it still worth to consider enter into this Vela Bay? So last is for this Vela Bay, just now Ryan mentioned USP is a sea view. So does it mean that non-sea view cannot buy? So later we will go in depth into this.
Let us talk about the concern in Vela Bay. Will the upcoming supply, which is 10,000 new housing in the Bayshore estate, impacting the exit? So from what I read in the news, there's going to be 10k new homes pushing into this Bayshore estate. And out of these 10,000 new homes, 7,000 is actually HDB and 3,000 is private. Let me break into these 2 portions. Let's discuss the upcoming 7,000 worth of new homes into this Bayshore estate. For Bayshore Estate, the first two HDB project that's going to be launched over here will be Bayshore Palms and Bayshore Vista. So unlike the old scheme whereby you are able to resell it 5 years later, these Bayshore homes, right, is being classified as the plus flats. It means that you are only able to resell 10 years later.
Then this means for Vela Bay, if let's say launch now, then we'll be complete like 2030, 2031. So by then, all these flats haven't MOP yet, then who will be our buyer next time?
Exactly. That's why if today you are buying Vela Bay as a short-term goal, then our suggestion is to really be careful. But of course, if you are looking at it as a mid-term or long-term investment, eventually these HDB buyers are still able to buy, just that they are unable to buy it due to the restriction, which is this 10 years MOP. But today, if you ask me, 10 years later when they want to sell, where do they want to consider buying first? I would say surrounding condos will be something that they will think of. One good thing about Vela Bay is that we have done our research, and surrounding condo like seaside residents, right, you can see that a lot of the resale buyers are actually holding on to a private address. So why is this important for you to know is that we want to emphasize for Vela Bay, the main bulk of the buyer short term won't be your HDB buyers. In fact, a lot of them will be coming from private address. Now that we have talked about the HDB supply, next let's talk about the condo supply, which is up and coming. There's going to be 3,000 units flushing into the Bayshore estate. Of course, I do want to acknowledge that the supply is coming in. This is something that we cannot change. There's a land in Bedok South have already been put up for tender. There's going to be 1,280 units. So I think the biggest question for buyers in Vela Bay will be, in 4 to 5 years time, you guys are going to be the seller. Am I right? Today, for Vela Bay, who has more stress? Is it the developer has more stress or the buyers who have more stress?
I think developer.
How come the developer have more stress?
If let's say they didn't price the product very sensitively, naturally buyer have more options because have 3,000 units to choose from. Especially the Bedok South is open for tender already.
Exactly. So for the developers in Vela Bay, they have 500 plus units to sell. As an individual buyer, probably we are only buying 1 to 2 units. So today, if the developer is stressed, there may be an opportunity that we can buy something cheap. And after we buy something cheap, right, I think the next thing we want to know is exit, which is very important because we need to know what is the USP for Vela Bay.
Because like 4 years later, you will become seller already. So I think this is where the concern coming from.
Correct. I give you an example. A lot of people also say that River Valley, there is an oversupply. How do we buy something that is highly sought after? For River Valley, right, we have River Green, River Modern, Promenade Peak, and Zion Grand. So which do you think is the most unique one?
You mean like more popular one?
More popular one.
In my opinion, will be River Modern because actually walking distance to MRT, then can see the river.
Correct. In my opinion, River Modern is the most highly sought after one because it has river views, close to MRT, close to mall, which some of the diamonds may lack of 1 or 2. So why we need to get something that is highly sought after? Next time when we want to resell, buyers will look at our condo first. For whatever reason, if our condo didn't meet their expectation, then they will move on to another condo.
What do you mean is like we want to become the first one people to view so that we have higher chance to get the buyer, is it, in
That's
the resale
correct.
market? Now come to point 2. So Vela Bay is the first new launches in this area after so many years. Surrounding, there's a lot of resale condo. As we know, the resale condo price make this Vela Bay launched at 2008, 2009 looks very expensive. So now the question is Vela Bay still worth to consider or not? So if you were to actively looking around for property, you will probably see this new Xinghai Li bid this piece of land at 1,003. So actually back then, last year, this piece of land is considered quite expensive.
Why do you say so? Why do you say that it's expensive?
Back then last year, actually there's a lot of land sold at like 1,002 and some more they are CCR area. Bayshore is quite away from a town. So 1,003 people may think that will it sell very expensive or not?
To add on, Vela Bay is considered the RCR region, and just now Jaylin was saying that CCR, the central region, land was only sold at 1,002 per square foot.
Yeah, quite many lands sold at 1,002. Just now we mentioned the Vela Bay will be located at this grey site over here. So opposite across the road, actually there's 2 resale condo already. So Ryan, do you know how much they are looking for in today's market?
I'm not too sure how much is Bayshore and Costa del Sol.
Okay, no problem. Their current PSF is looking at 2,000, 2,001. So key thing to take note is Costa del Sol is 20 plus years old. So if you were to see whether Vela Bay worth to enter at 2008-2009, one direct way to see is for Costa del Sol, balance lease is 70 years. So if let's say we top up the lease to 99 years, then how much will it cost today?
I think this is also an apple-to-apple comparison because Costa del Sol also have sea fronting units, whereas the Bayshore, right, is facing more inward. So basically you can't see the sea. I would say that Costa del Sol will be a direct
More
comparison to Vela Bay.
More comparable to Vela Bay. So just now I mentioned actually for Costa del Sol TOP on 2004, so it's a 20 plus year condo. In the past 1 year, the average PSF is 2055. 2055 is for 70 years lease. So if let's say we top up back to 99 years, today costing is about 2009.
So in a nutshell, if today Costa del Sol were to launch as a new launch, right, given the top up of lease, right, it should be priced at 2,900 plus per square foot.
Yes, you're right. But just now at the beginning, Ryan also mentioned there will be 3,000 private condo into this area.
Yep.
So here may have another residential private condo up for land tender. So well, the Vela Bay still looks expensive. So one key thing I noticed, just now we see Costa del Sol and the Bayshore 5 years gap condo, but key thing is their price gap is very far apart. So what do I mean far apart? Just now I mentioned Costa del Sol is TOP on 2004. Then the Bayshore is TOP on 1997 So there are 5 years gap in between. So the price gap is about 25%. So actually I went into deeper research to see whether another condo side by side 5 years gap have a similar performance or not. Then I take an example for the Warren and the Northwell. So one thing to take note is Northwell is TOP on 1998. Then the Warren is TOP on 2004, which is similar as the Costa del Sol and the Bayshore example.
So side by side, 5 years apart.
Yeah, correct. So we notice actually only have 6% price gap. So what does this mean? Because Costa del Sol and the Bayshore have price gap for 25%, and typical price gap for side by side 5 years condo is only 6%. Can I say that the 20% potentially is because of the sea view?
Meaning to say people are more willing to pay for the sea view.
Correct. People in this area are more willing to pay for the sea view. Back to our question, will Vela Bay looks expensive compared to the surrounding new launches, upcoming land? So if let's say for these two pieces of land, they have similar feature like Bayshore, they don't have sea view. If let's say they buy cheaper, end of the day, based on the performance of the Bayshore and Costa del Sol, they will still have 20% price gap.
How come they will still have 20% price gap?
Because Vela Bay will have the sea view just like the Costa del Sol.
Oh, so meaning to say, even if next time future land being sold at a lower price, Vela Bay will have a 20% price gap because it's only land that has sea view.
Correct. So this 20% will serve as a protection for the price for the Vela Bay owner.
Then what if the land is bought more expensive?
Yeah, then congrats to you. If let's say those don't have sea view, they can sell higher, then Vela Bay naturally can sell higher as well. So now come to our next question. Just now we mentioned the USP for this area is sea view. So if let's say we are going to buy a unit in Vela Bay, is it we have to buy a sea view unit?
Yeah, I think the whole video we have been talking about sea view. Let us now talk about, does it make sense to actually buy a unit that is facing either the landed or if not the pool facing units?
I would say depends. Let's draw an example from another project called Seaside Residence. They have the similar feature like Vela Bay. So the unit here actually can see the sea, whereas the other side actually is the low-rise landed view just like Vela Bay. So key thing I would like to draw the attention is during the launch day, for the same floor unit, sea view and non-sea view actually only have 100 per square foot difference. Just now the Bayshore example is the non-sea view, maybe the price is more stagnant. So we see fast forward to today how the transaction perform for the unit at Stack 31, which is sea facing, asking for 2006. Whereas for the non-sea view facing, actually we can see also catch up 2005. So another example is same thing. For the Stack 15 actually is sea view. The result already transact 2006. Whereas for the non-sea view also catch up at 2005. Another example, so on and so forth, 2007. and the non-sea view facing also catch up. So what I want to emphasize here, good facing unit always set the benchmark price for the project itself. The non-sea view, end of the day, they will catching up as well. So not necessarily buy a sea view one. If let's say the non-sea view facing, actually the price gap is quite big, actually still can consider as well. Because end of the day, the non-sea view will catch up the sea view facing the price.
Yeah, I think the sea view is a premium, and then it will also influence the non-sea view facing to go up in terms of price.
Yeah, correct. So come to the end for our analysis.
Of course, in today's video, we didn't really talk much about layout. If you want to know more insights about the layout analysis, do feel free to contact us and we'll be glad to share more with you.
I will see you in the next video.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.